Hello everybody. So this is going to be one of two videos I make soon. You'll see when the second one comes out. But today I'm talking about why I quit my Mensa, why I'm not renewing my membership. So let's give some context, right? We need to give some context as to how I joined Mensa, kind of my experience with life over the years, because that's relevant to joining Mensa. That's the whole idea, is you're so far above the average in intelligence that you need special groups, or it would be nice to have special groups of people to communicate with. So I need to talk about kind of my intellectual development over the years in order to talk about my reasons for joining Mensa, right? Um, so yeah, and if you ever wonder why I'm like super bright, like I'm gifted, but I'm really bad at making verbal points in my videos, it's because I have a neurological disability and I'm twice exceptional. That's why. So, but I don't let that stop me, right? I continue to make videos. I like public speaking. I don't let that stop me. So, anyways, when I was in elementary and middle school, I didn't really have too many special gifts, but um, there were some milestones that indicated giftedness. So, for example, I had very early, like baby toddler developments. I had really early, like development in those areas like spelling, um, reading, talking. I had really early developments, right? But as soon as I got into elementary and middle school, I kind of struggled academically. I was kind of an average student. Now, there were some things that indicated gifted ability, even though I wasn't great at academics. Like, for example, instead of playing with the kids, I would collect igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks, and the teacher would give me bags to bring it home. So I was very curious as a child about what kind of plants and rocks there were, and I would try to collect them as other kids were playing, so I wouldn't really play with them. Right, so that's an example of one sign of intellectual giftedness I has had as a child. But for the most part, I was an average student. I didn't really shine out. Um, I really didn't have. Um, I mean, I had advanced cognitive processes because I liked thinking about morality in around first or second grade, and life and the meanings behind life by first or second grade, which is very far above the average. Um, I might have repeated that. I'm not really good at keeping track, like I said, with how I explain things, but yeah, that's basically. I was an average student, but I had some advanced cognitive thinking. So high school comes along after elementary and middle school. Middle school is a blur. Like, I have no friends at all in middle school. I don't remember anything about middle school. And that's not because I have bad memory. That's because there were no memories to be made. That's how much of a blur middle school was for me. It was such a fucking blur with absolutely nothing. It was a big nothing burger. So high school comes around, and I have a significant boost in ability. Um, and to this day, I don't really know why. It could be because my neurological conditions have kind of cleared up over time, and the gift is kind of showing more. It could be because I started antipsychotics, because senior year and above was when I really started shining bright intellectually, although there was some jump freshman to junior year in high school. I started doing very well in all my classes. I started having trouble relating to average peers. Now, I did in middle school too. I always thought that like average peers were just stupid, right? Average kids were dumb because they just were, you know. And I don't mean to sound arrogant, but they just were. They would always like talk about like Instagram filters and like slang words, and they couldn't pay attention to their homework for 5 seconds. And I have ADHD, but I didn't, go on my phone all the time. So yeah, it was just like I thought that the average kid I could not relate to in high school. Um, but during my time in high school, under the Oklahoma education system, I was never identified as gifted. We'll get into that definition later. Now, something I also wanted to note that was interesting is that I've kind of acquired giftedness more than I have was born with it, I would say. It might be again that it was always there. Might be the sun is always there, but the clouds aren't, so to say. So the clouds were covering up the sun, but now that the clouds are gone, which is the disability, or clearing up, you can see the sun more clearly, right? So, but the something that I've kind of wondered is I go on Reddit and I see the DSM-5 for intellectual disability, right? And this is not the range we're talking about. We're talking about the opposite, which is giftedness. But something to note is that the DSM-5 says that intellectual disability is when a person has an average IQ, or I'm sorry, an overall IQ of 70 to 75 or below. And that's with some other assessment. It can't just be you take the Wechsler and you get 70 or 75 and then that's it. That you're diagnosed. That's not how it works, right? How it works is you also have to get like you have to tell, I mean, there has to be pure like observations and family members talking about observations, and you kind of gotta tell how it's impacted your daily life if you're cognizant of your intellectual disability, which there are people, right? Profoundly disabled people that have like really bad autism are not really that cognizant at all, right? But somebody with mild intellectual disability probably knows that they have some problems, right? So there's got to be more assessment than just an IQ test. But what's interesting is they say before 22 years old, that developmental period. So I'm wondering if the same thing happened to me, but it was the opposite, which is that I was kind of more average in middle school and elementary school, and I even took IQ tests, and I got around the average range, right? But nowadays, I get freaking every single test, I get 99th percentile. I don't understand why. Anyways, so I'm wondering if it just kind of like if the disability cleared and it showed, or what happened. Nobody can really explain it. I've talked to a couple psychologists about this. Oh, please don't get into heat. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay, I thought I was in trouble there. Um, but yeah, basically. Now, I'm sorry, I was distracted. So I'm not really sure how I got giftedness, especially when I scored average on tests. But it is very clear from what psychologists have said, what teachers have said about my behavior in high school, about me getting admitted in a Mensa, that I am gifted, for sure. Like, definitely. There is no disputing that. So that's what I kind of wonder, if in that intellectual developmental period, whether I just went sky high. So fast forward to college, I was kind of wondering, like, what is my IQ? Because I have such advanced, like, cognitive processes. And so I go, on r/cognitive testing. I'm an r/cognitive testing member. That place is toxic. But I take one of the non-copyrighted tests, and I score very high on it. So I figure maybe I am intellectually gifted. These tests aren't terrible. They're certainly more valid than an online test where if you have to pay $100 to get a 180 IQ result, which is totally BS, right? These are like Mensa Norway, Kate, uh, rather reliable online tests, right? And also, what's interesting is this is around the time where I took the test to get into the International High IQ Society on 123 test, which I don't think is that valid anymore. But I think it's certainly more valid than other online tests, and I got admitted. I got in that 95th percentile. So I figured, okay, maybe I am gifted, but there isn't an official test that I've taken yet, which signifies that I am, right? And in middle school, I kind of figured out, hey, there's this thing called Mensa, but I never thought I could get in until, now that I'm in college. So I schedule a Mensa exam in the spring. It was last spring, I believe. And it was the Reynolds Adaptable Intelligence Test, I believe. And I can't tell you anything about the test itself, except that it was really freaking fast. Like, it was really, really, really fast. And I have an extremely high processing speed, but some of the tests, some of the tests that I did, I just wasn't good at. I have a very, very high processing speed when it comes to typing, reacting to physical things, making decisions, kind of reasoning in most things. But some tests, nice. Some tests, like, for example, in my math class, I actually need additional time to complete the task. So anyways, yeah. Let's just say I did not pass the RAIT, which was the Mensa admissions test. I didn't pass it. And because I took it privately, like private testing, I didn't get a chance to do the other test, which is also relying on processing speed, but it would have given me another chance to go into Mensa. So I paid for more to get less, which was annoying. So summer comes along, right? And at this point, I want to get into Mensa. I think that the RAIT is a bunch of BS, right? And I knew every single question, but because it was so fast, I couldn't do it. So I called up a couple psychologists, and I got one with a psychotherapist or a licensed professional counselor. And it was the Test of Nonverbal Intelligence 4th edition. I did not take the Wechsler with her. And so after my emergency exit at the camp that I worked with, the summer camp I worked with, a few days later, I traveled down to where this psychologist is. It was about an hour and a half. And I take the Test of Nonverbal Intelligence 4th edition. Right? It's a fluid intelligence test, and it doesn't give an overall composite. But it's a good indicator of general intelligence, and it is a standardized intelligence test at the end of the day. Right? It is. It counts. And I score in the 98th percentile, which is the top 2% of the population, or in the very superior range. I scored a score of 132, which is about the top 1.5% of people in the general population. So very, very high, and in the realm of giftedness. So that qualifies me for Mensa, but what's also interesting is that had I taken a nonverbal intelligence, any intelligence test while I was in school and scored in the top 3% in Oklahoma, I would automatically qualify for gifted services and be considered intellectually gifted, right? So I would be considered a Category 1 gifted student. Most are category 2, which are multi-criteria. But I would have received gifted services. But because I didn't show my true potential while in school, I never got those services. So, wow. Okay, that's very nice. Wow. Uh, yeah, okay. So, I submit. So I send like a PDF result to Mensa. I didn't know I needed to submit prior evidence, but I did. I had to submit prior evidence. It costed me a lot of money to do this test with that psychologist. And it took a lot of my money out of work. But I wanted to get into Mensa to see what it was like, to see what other gifted individuals were like, and wanted to meet somebody of my own age. Now, they would almost never answer their phones when I asked, like, you know, how was the process going? I think my proctor counts because she has experience with psychology and IQ testing, things like that. And they would just. I submitted my prior evidence, which is basically you send paperwork into them. And about 3 or 4 weeks later, they deny it, even though they said that they would accept it. They said that they would have accepted her if I sent in the paperwork. So I sent in the paperwork, and 4 weeks later, so this whole thing probably took 6 or 7 weeks. They denied her because she was a licensed professional counselor. So I said, because she's a school psychologist and not a normal psychologist, my proctor, she wasn't valid for adult testing. But the thing is that she could administer the WACE, which I didn't really understand, but she could. She could administer the WACE to adults, to anybody. So I was a little confused by that, but I basically conceded and said, you know what? She's not qualified because I looked at her qualifications, and she's a school psychologist, right? So you guys got me. I didn't score in the 98th percentile with a valid proctor, and for some reason, all of a sudden, for some reason they said, actually, she's in a qualifying field, so you got accepted. And keep in mind, they would almost never answer their phones, and the whole process, I was kind of harassing them a little bit. I will admit that, and I feel bad about that. But I was just so eager, so a big squeeze to get in. Um, so I was willing to do anything that they requested to try to get in, try to argue anything I could, and I got in. I got in around August, and they sent me I paid my dues. They sent me my membership card, and I thought maybe I'll go up to, I don't know, Coffeeville, like Kansas, and meet some people, or Tulsa, or somewhere, cities in Oklahoma. So I don't have my car. I mean, I was checking out Mensa, and they didn't have really any support circles, right? And, most of the people are old. They're not young people my age. So it was basically impossible to find other people my age in Mensa. If you go if you type up on YouTube, uh, child Mensa news, you'll see all these gifted children are getting into Mensa, and these children are incredible. I mean, they were kind of like me in some sense in elementary and middle school, but not. They were academically way ahead of me because I was academically average. They could, I mean, count into the decillions when they were 2. They could do multiplication in kindergarten and division. Um, I mean, just crazy. Some of them could play the piano extremely well, better than most adults by 5 or 6. Let's see, what else were they capable of? There was one who had an IQ of around 148. That was the Jackson kid. He won like 7th out of 40,000 people in a math competition. Lucky kid. I was never the best at academics, but, and that might be a video for another time about why I don't care that I didn't get into the, why I don't care that I wasn't the 99th percentile in academics. Spoiler alert, it's because I realized at the time in high school that I actually wanted a childhood, and that I would probably make 6 figures either way by studying my ass off and getting 99th percentile scores in achievement tests like SAT, or just get 85th and get into a reasonable college. Like, it doesn't matter is what I was saying. And I was one of the rare few kids that actually realized I don't want to waste my childhood completely. So money is replaceable, time is not. So that's a quick sidetrack. So I got in. Most of the members were too old, although you'll see all the time that these gifted children are getting into Mensa. And I'm an adult, and I don't want contact with them, obviously, because I'm an adult, right? And they're like 8. But what I'm saying is there's no young demographics around my age. There's no people in their 20s. And there's all the time these children and these teens and whatever getting into Mensa, but I don't see any of them. Right? And so I head on a virtual call one day, or one weekend, because they have virtual calls, Mensans, and it's just all old people. And it's like, are you serious? Like, really? Like, there's not, and they were talking about, like, Star Trek, and the thing is that they weren't, listen, if I'm gifted enough to understand that if someone was my age in the call, and I was, like, 70, I would try to include them in the conversation with something they could actually speak about, right? Because they were just talking about, like, Star Trek and movies from the 60s. And I don't know anything about that, right? I was born in 2004. These people were born in the 60s and 50s. So I have no connection to them at all. So anyways, yeah. And then I would get magazines, and one of the magazines really pissed me off. I guess I can't. Whoops. Fuck. I can't explain what the magazines are, I guess, because it is a secretive society. But let's just say it was very anti-Republican, in my opinion. So it really pissed me off because I'm a Republican. And I don't like Brian Griffin, quote-unquote, elitists, right? That think they're really smart liberals, but they're actually just dumbasses, right? And if you're above that level, so understand that Elon Musk, IQ bell curve, Elon Musk is a fucking idiot. Well, because I'm not making a second part to the fucking, I'm combining the two, because if I make it to 2 parts and only a fraction of people are actually going to watch the second video. So I'm going to combine the two because fuck you, storage. I hope you fucking die in your sleep. So anyways, so Elon Musk is a fucking idiot. But basically the point is that Republicans are on the far left and far right at the bell curve, and Democrats are in the middle and kind of that 115, 120 area. Those are the most arrogant leftists. But those 130ers can beat them. That's basic. Well, Mensa is 130, so I'm a fucking idiot for saying that. But that's basically the point, right? Is that I hate fucking, like, anti-populist leftist smug lords. Or liberal smug lords. I hate the establishment. I am a populist by all means. I would vote for Bernie Sanders over somebody like Kamala Harris, probably. Just because I feel like Bernie Sanders actually cares more about me than some jackass like Kamala. So anyways, yeah. So that meme is relevant. But that basically, I would get like a newsletter every single month from them. And, That's what it would be like. So I tried calling them the other day for some support, and there was absolutely nothing. Like the phone just rang and they never picked it up. Uh, I don't have my own car, and I'm not gonna have the time to be able to travel like 80, 100 miles to go to meetings. It's just not something that I could do. I could go to college and hang out with people there, but I don't want to do that. Like I don't like college people. I just don't. Right? So, fuck. So, yeah, I mean, that's basically what I'm going to say. So that's why I left Mensa. That's all I wanted to finish the video off on, but because of storage, it wouldn't let me. God, fucking damn it. I fucking hate that. Now I am planning to rejoin Mensa eventually. I'm planning to rejoin when I get a car. I'm like retired and I'm able to go actually do these things and go to the conventions. And I'm planning to do that with minimalism, which is a video topic that I'll get into soon. But basically, the um, the idea of this video, basically the summary of this video, is that both by Oklahoma definition and Mensa, I'm intellectually gifted. Um, I talked about my experiences with Mensa and how they're a pain in the ass. European Mensas seem like they treat their members so much better. And because most European countries are small, it's actually worth joining them. So if you're in Europe, do not think of this video as the one. If you're intellectually gifted, I would probably look into joining Mensa there. If you're in a small European country or a area of the or like in a country where only a fraction of the country is really used for civilization, then I'm pretty sure you're fine. We're talking about American Mensa and how they're a pain in the ass. Anyways, that's all. Goodbye.